The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors: Woodland Stud, New Zealand Bloodstock Standardbred, Bracken Farms, Stonewall Stud, IRT, it's your horse and our passion, Australasian Wide Garrard's Horse and Hound, Ricciero Racing Stables, Lincoln Farms, the clubs Alexandra Park, Cambridge Raceway, Ashburton Trotting Club, Addington Raceway and Harness Racing New Zealand. Hi everyone, welcome into this edition of Your Box Seat. Yes, we are back in 2022 and a big thank you to our stable of sponsors who continue to support your program. Michael Guerin, before we get into reviewing what's been happening in the last month while we've been away, there's a lot been changing in the world of COVID. As I say hi to you.
Yeah, hi Greg, Happy New Year very belatedly to all of our viewers. Nice to have your company for 2022 and you've arrived at a time, as Greg said, where there's plenty going on. We all now know, if you live in New Zealand, we're at traffic light red settings. For racing, the good news is the show will go on. Clubs will have different ideas around pods and how many people they can fit in. Probably not too many major meetings coming up where you would expect big crowds, so therefore, hopefully, not too much loss to the industry. The most obvious, though, exception to that, Greg, would be the new Harness Millions meeting, February 12th out of Alexandra Park. They were hoping to have a big family fun day lead into the race meeting and a chance for us all to get together and celebrate the new night. That will be very much parried back now. The family fun day will go. They were going to have a sort of a semi-official opening of the apartment and development complexes there. That also will go. And they'll try and push that back maybe towards Auckland Cup time. But the great news is, Greg, all the racing will continue, as will the sales, starting at Karaka on the 13th of February. What will be interesting, and I know you've been across some of these discussions, is what would happen if COVID got into the training or, and more likely, driving communities? Because obviously, Greg, all of our drivers, like our jockeys, all hang out in the same room at the races. So hopefully we have some protocols put in place for those. Have you been in any discussions or hearing any rumours about such things?
Yeah, I spoke to David Branch, Darren Williams and Jason Broad. The first three meetings, effectively Wednesday obviously, will have been run by the time most people see this program. And they were all at lengths to say to me the importance of protecting the participants, because if any of them get COVID, we're in a power of pain. So the pods, which Addington are clearly well versed in fact Cambridge are as well, but Addington in particular because they went through it at Cup time, the pods of 100. Essentially, owners will be able to come if they've got a horse in and bring someone with them. They don't have to register, but they do obviously have to follow the COVID protocols, and they won't be able to go to the stables. So the horse people's bubble will be kept totally separate, and they will be able to go up into the stand and watch their horse and basically leave the racetrack from there. So that's important. That's the most important thing, that the participants in particular, and you mentioned the drivers, and what will be interesting too, Michael, is if they follow what the thoroughbreds have done by separating the two islands, so there's no travel from inter-regional travel, if you like. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out over the next week or so, and obviously leading into that new Harness Millions race meeting.
Yeah, that's the big one. I don't think it would affect most people for most meetings coming up, but yes, obviously the Southerners are going to want to be in the north for that meeting, and we want them there. So whether we have to introduce, for example, saliva testing to say if you want to come to Alexandra Park on that day, you must turn up with the test to say you are negative. Now, I'm not saying we should do that. That is one way of getting around it. But yeah, we all know it's coming, and we all know that it's going to be, the more travelling you do, the more difficult it's going to be. But with the sales coming up, we also don't want people travelling, Greg. So I think it's important we have some sort of protocols, because the last thing we want is somebody in the North Island training a driving community getting Omicron and taking it south to the sales and everybody getting it and shutting the industry down. That's being a little bit dramatic. It may not happen.
Yep.
But it's our job as an industry to protect each other. So I think those things, a testing regime to say to people, hey, not everybody's going to want to go. But if you want to be heading to these places, or you want to be heading indoors to these places, particularly inter-island, maybe that's the best we can hope for, Greg. And I'm not an expert on this sort of stuff, obviously, but I think what we've seen overseas has been something similar to that. So maybe some testing. The Gallops are talking about rapid antigen testing once they can acquire the tests, to test jockeys in particular, because trainers don't have to go near each other, but jockeys do. There's only one jockey's room. And that's another thing we could potentially look at is pods of Southland drivers, Canterbury drivers, keeping them separate from each other, because they don't actually have to get too close during the races. And then if one pod did get it, Greg, we could continue racing in Southland, or we could continue racing in Canterbury without them mixing. As I said, that's a decision for other people, but let's hope we get it right, because you get the feeling, Greg, Omicron's not going anywhere.
Best
Good.
advice, Michael.
Anyway, good fast.
No, it's not. Best advice, keep an eye on the HRNZ website and the club websites. They will certainly keep you updated, and we will each and every week on your box seat. Right, there's a few cups, country cups in particular, that we need to review while we've been away. Let's get straight into it, Michael. The Lincoln Farms Franklin Cup, the brave performance from Kango. That's Krug coming down the outside. But Kango, he just did what Kango does, be very brave.
He has developed into a better horse after his southern trip. Extremely brave, beating top-class horses, including Krug, who we'll see more of later in the show. That was the performance of the summer. One of the horses who's improved over the summer. Used to be fast, now he's both fast and a little bit tougher. Here's Ultra Wise Guy. Went to Omakau, Laver, set them up, as Laver tends to want to do. Classy Brigade was there, but he blew past them. Ultra Wise Guy, beautiful bit of reinsmanship from Tim Williams.
Yeah, it certainly was. Here's the Roxburgh Cup, and this was the turn of Memphis, Tennessee in the hands of John Morrison. He's been racing good, this horse, for some time. He's delivered 10 times for his connections and holds off a pretty fast finishing Art Attack there with Vintage Cheddar right in the fight too. Michael, the Otaki Cup on the grass.
Yeah, a bit of consternation amongst some people in the industry about the fact that American Me was allowed to start here. Really? I mean, these horses are all in the same grade. They're all the same type of horses. American Me is no superstar. If you've got an issue with giving a decent horse a start at these meetings, find something else to do with your time.
Here's the Cromwell Cup on the grass, a horse that's really emerged as McAndrew Aviator, and he was just a little bit too strong here for Plutonium Lady, so getting the job done there in front of a decent sort of a crowd at Cromwell. McAndrew Aviator, a horse to follow, that is for sure. To the Nelson Cup, Michael, once again, the Stonewall colours to the fore, and All-American Lover. She's getting better and better.
Very fast horse. You knew when you saw down on the grades that she had that really rapid leg speed, and it's taking her a long way. Got a feeling, Greg, she'll make her way most of the way to open class, steps into the big time at Addington this week.
Here we are in the Northern Southland Cup with the Oldhurst Hotel, and Laver, as you mentioned before, doing what he does best, trying to run them into the ground. Classy Brigade was very, very brave, but Laver, he's in a rich vein of form, be looking to continue that later this week. 9 from 50 now and close to 150,000. And on the grass again, as we often see at the top of the South Island, the Dunn team to the fore. Michael, Dashing Major, going back-to-back for the meeting.
He was really good on both days, had to sit parked on the first day and almost looked like he wanted to sit parked, but grass track suits him because Greg, probably lacks an inch of speed. And what we've seen over that entire package is most of those horses, Greg, had their lungs opened right up during New Zealand Cup week. Laver learned how to race there. Ultra Wise Guy, Dashing Major. They may not have won there, Greg, but they got Kango's another one. They had that hard racing. They've gone back to relatively normal racing, Greg, and they've been too good. I think out of all of them, maybe Kango's the one who's improved the most, because Laver was a factor in the Cup and a factor in the races around the Cup. Kango wasn't. Heading forward, Greg, including Cambridge this Thursday night, I get the feeling he will be.
Yeah, we'll have a preview of that Cambridge Classic, the handful of runners that'll be going to that a little bit later on in the program. Stick around for that. I'll give you the latest from Brent Mangos on his star in South Coast Arden. Would be remiss of us, though, not to have a look at the Trotters too. And the best in the south and the best in the north, both were doing their best and winning. First of those is Sunday Sun. This was in the Southern Lights. Only less than 10,000 now, Michael, away from the $1 million mark. mark, and well, it's only a matter of time with him, isn't it?
It is, and I'm not sure he's got any better stamina or speed-wise. What he's got's cleaner, Greg. He can hold that gait better. He's got better manners and he can hold it for longer. So he is just an exceptional trotter. Clearly he's the best trotter in Australasia. A shame he can't make it to Australia, but that's good news for all of us who like watching him race locally. Here's the northern version. Not quite as good, but pretty darn good. Bolt for Brilliance. Here he is at Cambridge, one of his 2 wins back-to-back there recently. Looks really in the zone, Greg, and these two are on track to meet at that Harness Millions meeting, February the 12th. Spoke to Tony Hurley last week. He said probably no February 3 for us. That's the lead-in meeting. Sunday's Sun's expected to head there, so they'll go again. So far, Bolt for Brilliance has only beaten Sunday's Sun home once. Interesting to see them clash again. February 12, Greg, adds even more to a meeting where we're going to see Self Assured versus South Coast Arden, and of course, the 3-year-old boys and the girls for the million.
Yeah, 27 wins from 60 for Sunday's Sun and about 16 out of 33 for Bolt for Brilliance, and of course beat Massive Metro, who then came out and won off a long mark last week. So the form certainly well to the fore there. Couple of milestones while we're away too, and we make an excuse, if you like, for some that we may have missed, but Graham Anderson wrapped up win number 400, which is a terrific effort, Michael. When you think of Graham, you think of Titan Banner, Eamon Maguire, of course Spirit of St Louis, who's just won 3 cups over there in Victoria, but this was Ari Ella winning his 400th race in the hands there of Ellie Barron, of course, 2 years to the day where she became famous for her off-the-track exploits, if you like, with Ricky May. But well done to Graham. That's a heck of an effort out of his Westwood Beach base. He's always approachable. He's clearly got a good eye for a horse. And when you think about him and you think of the run that Dexter Dunn had through those 10 premierships, that combination, they were absolutely lethal. And he's had too many good horses not to be a good horseman.
Yeah, no doubt. 400 wins is a lot of wins when you don't have too many really well-bred horses in the barn. So, yeah, well done to him and all of his staff and, of course, family. So that's a big result for them. Also from 400 wins, Greg, to one. Ben Hope, a friend of the show, who's always good humour and a very talented young man in many respects in harness racing, gets his first at Nelson with Tedesco. So you and I may not remember this, but he will, and so will Greg and Nina. Well done to the next Hope off the rank.
Yeah, certainly, and of course the reverse colours there. He has the light blue with the dark blue sleeves, and Mum and Dad the other way around. So he's made it quite clear on several occasions that he sees long term that he'll get into the training ranks, and there's his start with his own horse in Tedesco. So congratulations to both of those. So from Ben Hope, we get to go and have a look at this horse. Now, normally this would seem remarkable. A horse that's only been seen twice since October of 2020, and the last time was in March. Turns up at Addington Raceway, no trial, steps straight to the front and wins in 3:17. I'm talking about Bit of Muscle in the hands of Blair Orange as we go to our first break. Let's just marvel at this ability of one Paul Nairn.
And a big fresh up win. Welcome back, Bit of Muscle. Bit of Muscle, way too good.
Welcome back in to your box seat. Yes, it is New Zealand bloodstock sales time, and before we start having a look at some of the yearlings, we're going to have a look at Woodlands today. Let's go back to Friday night, Alexandra Park. Last season at the sales, it was the first crop of the sire Vincent. Here's his first racetrack runner and win, Michael, in Sevi. Overall time wasn't fast, but they sprinted very quickly, 27.9 the last quarter. Tony Hurley saying in the media it wasn't really his go.
No, he's a big, strong, quite a tough-looking horse for the future heading forward. And I don't think he was perfectly suited by the driving tactics. David Butcher almost undid him with the lead. A beautiful drive by David. But Tony managed to get home by a no, so Vincent is 1 for 1 so far. Good reports coming out about the Vincents, as you would expect from a son of Art Major. They stand up tall, they look the part, and they will continue to sell well, Greg, and that will help.
Just one in the Northern sale, a filly, lot 112, and there's 14 in the Christchurch sale. Speaking of Christchurch, here's some details around where the Yearling Tour will be this year. It is next Monday from the 31st of January, and of course is over the 2 days, starting off at Rosedale Farm. That's Ken and Anne-Marie Spicer, and they've got about 23 yearlings there. Spraden have got about 14 at their Springs Road at Prebbleton Base. Studham Bloodstock, that's Brian West, big number there, about 16 as well. And then of course we go into Tuesday. It all finishes up at Renwick Farms on that first day, and finishes at Dancing on Moonlight, who have about 13 as well. And Laura Smith there with about 16 yearlings too. So there's some details around the tours, and still to come is the Southern Bred Southern Red Tour. Speaking to those who went on the Northern Tour though, Michael, there's a lot of people impressed with the stock, the likes of the Breckons and the Woodlands drafts, big drafts. Woodlands have got 44, and we'll have a look at some of those in a moment, but some pretty positive chat around how they've been prepared for this year.
Yeah, well, the whole yearling preparation in both islands has improved enormously in the last 10 years, and you do get that when you have bigger farms. Some people may like the spread of smaller farms, which is also great, but bigger farms gives you the scale to do things potentially not better, but to a more, shall we say, expensive and financial level. And we're very lucky. There's some incredibly talented people in standard bred breeding and standard bred preparing. So, Greg, the standard's outstanding, and we're going to have ripping sales. There's no doubts about that. There's a lot of money in the country, and a lot of money which can't leave the country at the moment because some people aren't taking those overseas holidays, and we do have very strong external demand. We have a lot of people in Australia who like harness racing who want to buy New Zealand horses because they're smart. That's
right.
It.
That's excellent, Michael.
Well, Greg, it's a funny thing to say. It's just smarter.
Yes.
We breed better horses. They breed very good horses in Australia. We breed on the whole, better horses.
Yep.
And it's not expensive to buy them, and it's not impossible to buy them. And you have a lot of people here on the ground, like a Mark Purdon, for example, or a Crandall Getty, or whoever you want, Steve Telfer in the north, who know what they're doing. So the Australians have very easy access to that, whereas in the galloping game, you're selling thousands of horses. It's a lot harder to wade through the horses, Greg, because there's so many of them. In harness racing, I had this conversation with John Street last week. Most of the 100,000 plus buyers want the same 30 or 40 horses. And then they're going to divide those up between themselves. So it's not hard to get around 30 or 40 horses. It's not hard to study 30 or 40 videos. You try studying Magic Millions, Inglis, and New Zealand Bloodstock's thoroughbred catalogues, and Greg, you'll just go out of your mind.
Yep, make a very good point there, Michael. Let's have a look at some of that Woodlands draft, and we start off with a lot number 84. This is a colt by What the Hill out of Madam Spur. She won 5 races herself. Michael, lovely colt this, walks really nicely. When you think about this family, this is the family of Marinai, so should be pretty well sought after.
Yeah, and Mary and I was a horse who didn't race at 3 and wasn't an early running horse, but a lot of horses in this family have been. Horses like Rose Emma, horses like Tailored Elegance, horses like Sunny Elegant. They've run early. On Advice is doing similar things in Sydney at the moment. So should run early, and people love the What the Hills. He was probably the biggest success story of last year's sales in both islands.
Lot 107's a Sweet Lou out of Revere Me, a brown colt, 2 foals, including the full brother being Sugar Me, who's done such a great job, 6 wins here in New Zealand. This is obviously the family of Have Faith in Me, Sweet on Me, Darling Me, Adore Me, the list goes on. Michael, will again be pretty sought after.
Probably the most current family in Australasian racing. Just Remember Me doing another big bonus thing for the family at Menangle last week. They just keep on winning all the time.
This one Down by the Seaside, lot 116 out of Saturation. Of course, Besotted, the Taylor Mile winner, is out of that mare, so beautifully conformed, lovely looking colt, and again, should be pretty well sought after. Infatuation's also out of that, and it's won 7 in WA, so maybe a bit of Australian interest there, Michael.
Yeah, and look, Down by the Seaside has been enormous early doors in North America. People love buying them. They look good. They're good-looking types of horses. This mare did leave Besotted, but she also left 6 winners from 6 runners. So 6 horses been to the races, all 6 of them have won. When you buy a horse like that, Greg, the thing that goes through your mind is, well, even if this isn't exactly what I want, because when you buy a horse, you want a Group 1 winner. If it's not that, I'll be able to get out of it. If it's Rain Man, this horse's brother, or one of those horses like Perfect Storm, I'll be able to sell this to someone in Australia. And that's crucial, because when you spend 100, having an exit strategy is really important. But yeah, Down by the Seaside has been enormously popular in North America for obvious reasons, and they won't be hard to buy. Same as What the Hill. We don't see them on the tracks yet. We don't know them yet, Greg, but they have nothing to prove so far, because we know they can do it there, and they look the part, which is half the battle.
Yeah, draft of 44 for Woodland, such great supporters of this show. 8 of them Down by the Seaside, 11 Sweet Loos, 3 What the Hills, 20 by Better's Delight, their flagship horse, of course. So, no, looking forward to the Woodlands draft of 2022. And next week, we'll have a look at some of the Brecon Stars as well. Right, let's go across the Tasman and take in some of the outstanding weekend that it was for the Kiwis. We kick things off with Krug. This was first up at Menangle. Often you've told me, Michael, they'll probably need a run. He sat parked and broke 150.
He was super. And Carter Dalgetty has taken the team across for Mum and Dad, and he said, I thought he might be a bit fat. I thought he might need a run. 149.9, sitting parked, home in 26 and a bit, 26.3. Should be significantly better for that on the pathway to the Chariots of Fire, which if he wins, will get him into the Miracle Mile. So clearly, he's a horse, Greg. Some of our horses like it, some of our horses don't like it. He thinks Menangle was just groovy.
Yeah, he was outstanding there, as was his stablemate, Remember Me, or Just Remember Me, and they certainly will. Off the back of this performance, rolled to the front about, 1,000 metres from home. You know the horse in the trail better than I, Madrid, but she was excellent to the line in 51.8.
The horse in the trail, if you want some context to this race, Madrid won the New South Wales Breeders' Challenge. So she's the best filly in New South Wales. Now, she didn't get a fair crack, but to be honest, they handed up to Just Remember Me, which is unusual for that team. So clearly they were probably half a run short, but so was Just Remember Me. And Carter telling me this week, horses settled him beautifully. She's loving it over here. Big, strong horse, out of Adore Me. She's going to cop the Oaks distance, Greg. That's at the back end of February. It'll take a good filly to beat her over there. Both those winners, and the next winner we're about to see, driven by Jack Trainer. Now, because Luke McCarthy was unavailable, he was at Ballarat, and Anthony Butt can't get down for this carnival because he has Victorian engagements as well. Jack Trainer has put himself in the box seat, excuse the pun, to drive these horses, and he is already the trainer driver of this horse. Here's Stylish Memphis, sitting parked outside Fairy Tinkerbell, who's a very good filly, very good mare, I should say, very good mare, and she's too strong over the top. So Jack is in good form, and he is looking after Carter because, of course, they both knew each other from when Jack worked for Cran and Chrissy. So a massive weekend for Jack, but really proud of Carter, Greg. He's gone over there with the 2 horses for Mum and Dad. He's going to have to park up there for 6 weeks. He's doing a great job, and he got 3 drives at Menangle on Tuesday.
Yeah, and the horses clearly delivered on night 1, and you'd imagine that improved too. And just on Stylish Memphis, she's on a pathway, of course, wanting to win that ladyship and get into the Miracle Mile again. So there's a possibility that could happen. The other big, or it was a couple of big races actually, but I reckon just about the Grand Circuit race of the last 5 years was the Ballarat Cup. This was won by Spirit of St. Louis. More lead changes here than I've seen in a wee while, Michael, and Spirit of St. Louis, who's still part owned over here in New Zealand, dashed at them late and got another Country Cup win.
Oh, we talked earlier about horses going to the Cup Carnival at Addington and coming home better horses. Well, he went to the Inter-Dominions and came out of it a better horse. He had that hard racing at the Inter-Doms, and here he is, inside out, as you looked at that picture. Expensive Ego, Lochinvar Art, Little Spirit of St. Louis, or St. Louis, depending on how you say it. An Amazing Dream, storming home at him late. She was excellent. Amazing Dream. The young man driving was Jack Callahan. He's driven the horse to win the Bendigo Cup, Shepparton Cup and Ballarat Cup, bang, 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 all together. Now, Expensive Ego will improve, and so too will Lochinvar Art, Greg. Amazing Dream, all those four, and Triple Eight, who's also part owned here, who ran into fifth, will head to the Hunter Cup. So a couple might stop in at the Casey Classic, that's at Melton this weekend. Expensive Ego will, because he needs the racing to get fit. Then they'll all meet in the Hunter Cup, and most of them have spoken to the trainers this week, are heading to the Miracle Mile, including Amazing Dream. So Nathan Purdon saying, we will head to the Miracle Mile rather than sort of worrying about the Ladyship Mile as the main aim. We'll go through there but use it to get to the Miracle Mile. So Greg, lots of New Zealand interest there, and I think very much an open class crop where if you add in Bonsall Benjamin with his gate speed and King of Swing, who goes to Menangle this Saturday night, it's a pretty juicy summer they got going over there, Greg. And to be honest, their open class crop is deeper and better than ours, because with Copy That on the sidelines, we've really only got Self Assured and probably South Coast Arden, who would be competitive in those races, I believe.
When we spoke about Graham Anderson earlier winning his 400th race, of course, he developed Spirit of St. Louis. And when he was here, I thought when he gets the right sort of run and he can have one shot at them, Michael, he is clearly very, very fast, like a lot of the Sweet Loos. But you're right, he's developed the all-round game now, and he'll get a bit more respect too out there with those types of performances. The other remarkable thing out of that race was, once again, Amazing Dream got out to $18, $19. Just about every time she does, although she didn't win this time, she nearly does win.
The tougher the race, the better she goes.
Yeah.
She likes it when the speed's on. She gets beaten in mares races, and she goes great in the big races. What you're seeing here, and this has happened as a pattern for 10 years, you can tell people in Victoria, and they hate hearing it. They hate it. But Menangle better prepares horses for the Grand Circuit. That isn't actually a Grand Circuit race, but it's close enough to one. And Menangle prepares them better for the Grand Circuit. It helps that Belinda and Luke McCarthy are hell of good trainers. But they get so fit racing at Menangle because it's so gutting that when you take them to racing in Victoria, where they race on the smaller tracks, and it's not as gutting, then they're fitter than them. I did the study on it a couple of years ago. I was so bored one night. I went back through every Grand Circuit race in the last 12 years, since they opened Menangle. Then it was 12 years ago. And the New South Wales horses were leading something like 60-30%, with 10% for the Kiwis in the Grand Circuit, because they're just so fit. And you see that with New Zealand horses who go there, Greg, and come back. The record of horses who have competed at the Miracle Mile back in the old days and came back and raced in the Auckland Cup is fantastic. So it's an important punting note, and Spirit of St. Louis, or Lake Louis, is the absolute best version of that, because it's just made him fitter and stronger.
Yeah, it has done. Majestic Man's performance in the race won by I'm Ready Jet. I think it was the Cochrane Cup.
Yeah, Anthony Butt said, look, the horse choked down, or basically shut off its own airways, and he's dropped out and finished second last. There's all sorts of issues there. He just doesn't look a happy horse, Greg. He hasn't looked a happy horse for a long time. And I'm not talking sore. Maybe he's just getting older. Maybe there's a few niggles. You and I have both got them. So plenty of people who watch this show. I think he's just struggling at the moment, Greg. And I love the horse. I hope he wins a big race over there. I don't want to back him to win a big race anytime soon. In an open class trotting crop, which is pretty even over there at the moment.
A couple of other ladies that did a good job. Be My Rose, who's still owned by Barry and Katrina Purdon, was winning at Menangle, and Often Gone won the first race there at Ballarat. Has won a couple of times now in 4 appearances over there, and is still owned by the Williams and the Woodham team. Minstrel taking out the Fremantle Cup. Yes, $300,000, Michael, on Friday night. Look for the horse widest out here. Patronus Star, who was developed, of course, by Gavin Smith, storming home. I haven't seen one do that at Gloucester Park in a wee while, or maybe ever. Terrific run from it. But Minstrel, still owned by Robin and Jackie Butt and the Hickmans, amongst others still here in New Zealand. Barrier 1, hugely advantageous in that $300,000 race.
It was. He was a good horse here. He would have been a New Zealand Cup horse here. We know that. But they half sold him and decided to stay in him, to send him over to Perth. And look, with that sort of speed, got an easy sectional down the back by Gloucester Park standards. And Petronas Star was super, very on the mighty Quinn light-ish down the outside. But yeah, Minstrel's been a good horse over there for a while. Deserved that very smart drive gets him home, and they have the WA Cup coming up next.
All right, answer this for me. So King of Swing goes round this week, and they all lob to the Hunter Cup. Who at this stage would be favourite?
It's just so draw dependent these days. It wasn't the Inter Dominions, Greg. I mean, you put King of Swing and Expensive Ego on the second line, you're probably getting $4 each of two, because Spirit of St. Louis might be on the front line and Lochinvar Arts there. You know, whoever gets the best draw out of those. Probably if you opened a market right now, with the draw probabilities being a 7 versus a 5, so you know, around about sort of 35% you might draw the second line, or 40% you might draw the second line, Lochinvar Art, because the Victorians will go for him, and he's a horse we know can work and win those races. We don't know Spirit of St. Louis or King of Swing can work and win those races, and Expensive Ego, I think his place in the market will be established by what happens this week. Interesting question is who's going to drive who, because Luke McCarthy is a huge King of Swing man. He drives him at Menangle this week from the outside of the gate. Jack Callahan will stay on Spirit of St. Louis. The regular drivers they would go to in those situations, well, Anthony Butts on Amazing Dream, and David Moran, who drove Expensive Ego on the Inter Dominions, of course, trains Lochinvar Art. So there could be an Expensive Ego drive going up for grabs, or if he draws the front and King of Swing draws the second line, maybe the King gets a new driver. That'd be very unexpected. Reason it's important to us, Greg, all of those horses, speaking to them, are in the mix for the race at Cambridge on the 14th. They are all horses who, if they continue their form well, they might look to do business with a slot holder or slot holders to get them here. That may be Omicron and border dependent, but wouldn't it be great to have a couple of them lining up on the Thursday before Easter?
Yeah, it certainly would be. Spoke to David Branch about that today. He said expressions of interest, or applications actually, close on Monday at 5 o'clock, and then they'll be working their way through them with their special committee around who gets the 10 slots from there. So it's sounding all pretty positive from the Waikato region.
Just with that, Greg, there's still a little misconception here, and I don't mean to go on about this. I'm not paying paid to promote the race. People are thinking that we have to pay this much money and we're not going to get enough back and not enough's going in from the club, and then I need a horse. Well, you can get a horse. Don't worry, there's plenty of horses.
That's the least of your worries.
Exactly. Trust me, we've got them. You'll see them on the show. If racing's part of your taxable income, and we had an honest discussion about this. I thought about buying a slot myself, but I would have thought, considering we're probably producing most of the information about this, it would be inappropriate to do that, because people might think, well, you keep that to yourself. So you and I had a discussion, otherwise I would have bought a slot. I think if it's part of your taxable income, it's pretty simple. You buy a slot if you want to, if you're a stud or an entity like that. You buy a slot, you charge it back as a marketing expense through your accountant, that's what they're paid to do, and you get a third of your money back at company tax rates of 33 cents in the dollar. You get 25,000 back there, and then you simply say to the horse you put into your deal, if you run last 5, you don't get any money, or we'll give you $5,000, and I keep the other 32.5. Now, no one's going to say no, because if they say no, Greg, they don't get into the race. So simple math, if that's even realistic, you're getting 32 back plus 25. Well, all of a sudden you're getting 60 back, and you're getting a free throw at the stumps. Why do I know that's a good idea? Because one of the biggest racing entities in the world is going to try and get a slot. And they'll get a slot. Now, these aren't dumb people. These are people who deal in big numbers. And they realise it's just that simple. So if it's part of your taxable income, Greg, again, people need to get this through their heads. And if you have a horse who runs in the last 5 in your slot, well, just say to them, the deal is this. It doesn't need to be half and half. It doesn't need to be that. If you said to the Kango people or to some of the people with some horses like that, well, you can have my slot, you're only getting 5,000, but if you run top 5, you get more, they say yes. Because, Greg, there's nothing else for them that weekend. No. So I think some people are struggling to get their heads around, I haven't got a horse, there's not enough horses. Trust me, there's enough horses. The question mark is whether it's part of your taxable income. And to be honest, Greg, for most of the big breeding entities, obviously it is. So it's worth investigating. David Branch has all the answers for you, but I think a lot of people are struggling to get their heads around this because they think they need a horse. That's not how it works. And this time next year, you might have a horse.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, Michael, once those 10 slots are allocated, that's when the games really begin, isn't it? That's when the negotiation ability of someone is going to come to the fore.
Well, Greg, one thing I know about going to the yearling sales is buying early is the cheapest buying you ever do.
Yes.
Now, in 2 years' time, when someone says, I want to get a slot in the race, this is going to seem cheap. As I said, it's easy for me to say because it's not my money to spend. I was comfortable spending my own money because I could have made it taxable, or we could have done it for the box seat as part of our marketing expenses.
Yep.
But it just wouldn't have been appropriate because of the way the information comes through the train. If I owned a stud or a sales company, Greg, I wouldn't even give it a second thought.
Wouldn't hesitate.
I'd sign up before I had my first cup of coffee tomorrow morning. And that's not me pushing it on people. It's just that simple.
That makes sense. Yep, we'll leave that there because we've got plenty more talk to be had around the race. Take a short break. When we come back, we've got a lot of races to preview for you because there's some excellent harness racing coming up in both islands. Welcome back into your box seat. Yes, we're in the home straight. And speaking of home straights, last Friday night, Michael Self Assured did this, sitting parked outside Kango. Gee, he was strong. That took his earnings over $1 million.
And plenty more to come because, Greg, Mark Purdon said something bizarre after the Cup Carnival. I don't think he was right. He ran second in the New Zealand Cup and second in the free-for-all. He said to me after Friday night, I think he's better. So he's the horse to beat in everything heading forward. BD Joe, very good in second. Kango, becoming a horse who gives other horse people headaches. And that's a good thing heading forward for our open class racing. But at the moment, number 1 seed is this horse, Greg, but he's not going to Cambridge for the Classic there on Thursday night. They were looking to go. He'll go to the Park on the 3rd, then into the 12th.
Yeah, well, his performance there was nothing short of outstanding. Win number 20. Speaking of Cambridge and the Bay of Plenty Waikato Harness Racing Club, they have their classic there on Thursday night, the Barrett Homes. Only the 5 going to the post. One of those is the New Zealand free-for-all winner in the form of South Coast Arden. This is him sitting parked. He's had 2 trials, Michael. Spoke to Brent Mangos about him today. He said he's exactly where I need him. He was excellent in the last couple of 100 metres here, getting home in pretty slick sectionals, 56, 8 and 27. I said to him, so is he bang on for this week? He said, don't forget, he won the Canterbury Classic fresh up, went around them and sat parked and was too strong. I said, what are you going to do off the gate, Mango? Because if he leans forward, they're in a power of pain. He said, I'll just let the horse tell me how he's feeling. I get the feeling he might be going forward.
And it probably doesn't even need to because, Greg, if he's a comparable horse to Self Assured, or their form this year would suggest he is, well, we saw Self Assured sit parked in a similar field and beat them last Friday. So South Coast Arden, who maybe doesn't have quite the extreme acceleration of Self Assured, should be able to do the same thing. It's always more comfortable watching them in front, but if Kango is going to continue to be driven that way, which is really good for the open class racing, Greg, it makes it exciting, then this horse may have to sit parked, and then the question is, are you willing to take short odds to do so? The answer is probably yes.
So that is Thursday night, really good race, just the 5 going to the post there. Excellent program last Friday at Addington, as was the case at Alexandra Park, but leading into Friday night, they have the Garrard's Premier Mares, and it's a very good field this. Let's have a look at Better Twist. The last time she clashed with many of her rivals for this week, this was in the Rosslyn Stud Queen of Hearts, Michael. She's been to the trials, finished second behind All-American Lover. Sectionally, that was pretty good as well, although she was in front and got run down, but she is the type of mare that does lift and lift big time on race night. She's opened up at $2.50 for the Premier Mares, Michael. $4.50 for Need You Now, and a really interesting front line with Bella Montana there as well for the Purdon Phelan team. So yeah, interesting to see her in the south.
Yeah, so much is going to depend on tactics and intent here, Greg. Like whether, in this race, for example, she ran to the front. And once she ran to the front, she was clearly the horse to beat. And any time she's on the marker pegs, she's the horse to beat. It's a lot harder for her to sit parked and win because it's a lot harder for any horse to do that, Greg, as you know, as everybody knows. So the question is, what's the intent? Over 1980, do the rival drivers say, I'm happy to follow her? Or is this my week? Is this the chance I have a go? And there's good enough horses in here, Greg, to do that. Life's a Beach off the back row, and those good horses off the second line can follow through. And if that happens, they could beat her. I'm not saying they will, but it's the key factor for me every time she races, Greg. Put her on the marker pegs, want to back her every single start, put her sitting parked, and she's always vulnerable. And if you go back over her stats, sitting parked in this country or in the Breeders' Crown in Australia, she's probably under 50% winning percentage.
So is 250 about right?
It's about right. What I'll attempt to do for the Herald this week and is just ring 3 or 4 trainers and say, what are you thinking? What do you want to do? And that gives you some idea, Greg. So we'll try and find our best way to indicate to people what we think the tactics may be. They don't always work that way, but I couldn't take 250 from out there, Greg, because you need to be clearly superior and able to sit park like Self Assured last week to feel comfortable with that sort of money in a very even capacity field.
Yeah, Taste of Honey Manhattan, who was excellent last week and rated 155. If they go that sort of speed up front, it certainly won't be easy. The other feature of the night's the Coca-Cola Summer Trotting Free-for-All and the return of Muscle Mountain, who went to the trials against the Pacers. That's Beach Ball in second. Really good sectionally as well, 56.27.8. He looks, well, like Muscle Mountain always does, comfortable, particularly when he's rolling in front. He's opened $1.55. His biggest threat, I suppose, Michael, is Oscar Bonavina, who we saw running second in behind Sunday Sun down south at the Northern Southland meeting. Others in the market, Midnight Dash, who I thought was quite good last week, is $11, and then you're sort of getting out to the Dominator, who we know has very good early speed at around $18. But $1.55, I'm picking a lot of people will be putting the Hope team and Muscle Mountain on potentially their multi-tickets.
Yeah, I don't think he'll get a lot longer. In that video, we didn't see him come off the gate, but he came off the gate really well and really solid, trotting very smoothly, very square in his action there. He's good fresh. I think he'll win, but Oscar Bonavina is talented enough to beat him. But Oscar Bonavina almost certainly is going to be behind him because the other horse who gets off the gate well also is Midnight Dash, and he would hand, I'm sure, to the stablemate. So it'd be tempting, Greg. It'd be really tempting with Oscar Bonavina to roll the dice and say, I'm fitter than you, I'm going to power up out of the gate, because I think if he goes back, I just can't see any way he beats him.
No, and Muscle Mountain, as we know in front, he is incredibly hard to run past. Looking forward to seeing him in that Group 3 feature. Another feature is on Saturday afternoon. Harness action coming to us. It is the Invercargill Cup, which next year will be worth $100,000 as part of the new calendar. We get to see Pembroke Playboy back, Michael. This is him at the trials, home in 57.27. We know how big a threat he would have been in the New Zealand Cup. It was nice to see him do this comfortably, albeit in a sedate time, but in a time that reflected where he's at in his condition. Just looking after him there, Nathan. This race has always been a hard race to win, but I believe he certainly has the credentials to be able to do so. Let's have a look at the market. $3.80 if you want to back him. He starts off the 20 metres with One Change, who was nothing short of outstanding last week, and behind Above and Beyond. The favourite's Ultra Wise Guy, Michael, at $2.20. We saw him earlier, winning at Omakau, winning the free-for-all there. He gets a 10-metre start. He lines up there with Johnny Mack and Cranbourne. And then you've got the other horses we've seen, McAndrew, Aviator and Memphis, Tennessee, starting off the front. So it's a really intriguing Ascot Park Hotel Invercargill Cup this year. Pembroke Playboy, I think he's the best horse in the race, but will he just be that smidgen short, or having not had a race for such a wee while?
You can't back horses off 20-metre handicaps, Greg, when they're fresh up, because they're going to have to work harder than a horse like Ultra Wise Guy who's not fresh up. So not only is he going to need to be better than him, but he's going to need to be better than him at below his peak fitness, when the other horse is probably close to his peak fitness. Ultra Wise Guy, let's not forget, went to the Sales Series pace at Addington back the week before the Cup Carnival and stepped well and led. Now, if he does that incredibly hard to come around a horse like him and beat him, Greg, because say they go the last mile, and this time of the year in the deep south they can run some wicked times. Say they go the last mile in 56, is Pembroke Playboy coming 3 wide and going 55? So I can't back him, absolutely can't back him. Totally agree with you, best horse in the race. I'm looking forward to seeing him winning races soon. I'm looking forward to backing him to winning races soon. It just won't be this race.
He's another, speaking of the race, he's another one that potentially could be in line for someone who's got a slot though.
There's plenty of them. Horses like him, and as I said, Kangos, even Ultra Wise Guy. You say to yourself, let's get, if you want to get one, most people watching the show aren't going to be buying a slot, Greg. But there's plenty of business to be done there. There's plenty of horses to be done. And let's also not forget, Omicron's going to make it harder to get horses into the country. So some horses who you may be fearful of taking on may not be there. It'd be extremely tempting if you were southern bred, southern reared, to say to yourself, why don't we have a slot? As I said, Greg, we're not here to spend other people's money, but I just can't get my head around how easy this is to do when I consider how much money studs and sales companies and race clubs spend on marketing.
Yep.
I know how much they spend, Greg, and this is the best marketing money you'll ever spend because some really serious people are getting involved in this, and they will carry the race around and put it down in lots of places in Australia, in America and in New Zealand, and if your name's attached to it, you get to go with them.
Yeah, exactly, Michael. A year ago, we lost a good mate in Revel Douglas, and the series that's been put together by HRNZ is underway. I think it finishes the first week in February. We've got an update in terms of the points for you. The High Gain Revel Douglas Memorial Junior Drivers Series is led by Alicia Harrison. More about her in just a moment. And of course, we'll keep you updated with the points around that. But Alicia won't be competing anymore, so there's a great opportunity for someone below her to grab the inaugural Revel Douglas Memorial Series trophy, sponsored by High Gain. Speaking of Alicia Harrison, Michael, over the weekend, a big weekend in Auckland it was, of course, the Karaka Million race night, which was where Alicia and her friends were heading. She was involved in a pretty ordinary road accident. When you see the pictures of the vehicle that she was travelling in, she was with Danielle Green, who worked for a long time for Brent Mangos and now is with Anna Donnelly. We lost Revel Douglas a year ago. We nearly lost those couple of harness racing people as well because this was an awful road accident. I've spoken to Alicia. She's got a broken sternum. She's not happy with how long she's going to be out of the sulky, but she's very happy to be alive. I can promise you that, because that was one heck of a road accident.
Yeah, horrific scenes heading to the races on Saturday. And we know the road toll has been horrific around the entire country for the last 6 weeks. So I'm just glad that everybody in the harness racing community involved in that accident, I don't know what's happened to the other people involved, I know they haven't passed away, are okay. Intelligent, smart girl, very popular and very good at her job and very much loves her job. So, yep, like Danielle Johnson for the Gallops and Lisa Rule-Press, she'll be hating being on the sidelines, but I'm glad the story was not worse, Greg.
Yeah, exactly, and I have touched with her about those others that were in the car with her as well, and yep, they've had to have some operations and some pretty serious ones, but she said they're going to come out of it okay, and that ultimately is the most important thing there. Michael, just while we're in the north, Andrew Drake takes up a training partnership, of course, with Ray Green, which to me makes logical sense. Clearly Ray can't be there, therefore I know he's talking to him a couple of times a week. I think he's set on like a Wednesday and a Saturday, pre-race and post-race. They're talking about the horses, but a great opportunity for a young guy who's well liked in northern harness racing circles. Yeah,
and it could be a long-term partnership. Andrew is a guy who you may not know a lot about because he doesn't train a big team until right now, but very conscientious, very good planner. Now I've asked around about him to people who work alongside him. Very good reps on him, Greg. He's very smart about how he's going about the business. The team is racing well, raced well at Cambridge last week. So I think well done to him. He's making a name for himself now and taking it by the fist and saying, I'm going to have a crack at this. And I think for Lincoln Farms, that solidity of having somebody's name on the stationery now until Ray gets back is really good. And Ray's not a spring chicken, he's 76, Greg.
Yep.
So there needs to be some succession planning there because Lincoln Farms are awfully big players and they'll play again at the sales. So well done to him. He's got Zach Butcher as a sidekick too, which is probably remotely useful.
Yeah, is that advantageous? I'm picking it.
It'll be annoying, what it'll be.
It opens up another discussion though around Lincoln Farms and going forward to the sales because Ray's such a big part of looking over the yearlings.
I spoke to them about it, Greg,
Yeah.
actually. So John Green said they've got 9 horses they purchased or bred last year or just turned up at the place.
Yep.
So he said, we're going to the sales and we're intending to buy about 5.
Right.
So that'll be about 10.
Yeah.
So I reckon
John.
when we do the sales review show about,
Yep.
I think it's on the Thursday after the sales.
It is, yeah, correct.
We'll be telling you that Lincoln Farms bought 10.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just on that, it is worth reiterating that week we will have a later box seat to enable us to cover the sales properly, Michael, because otherwise we'd be coming in off the back or halfway through them on the Wednesday, and that's not really ideal because it's hard to give it context. So Thursday morning, it'll play out on Trackside on Friday morning and will be available online on Thursday night, which is important for the breeding and the sales industry.
It's a huge time of the year. Yeah. And Greg, to anybody out there who's got a really cool draft, get hold of Greg because he's in charge of the show. I just turn up and talk. And if you've got a horse you think you love, if you've got a shot, don't give us a bad shot you took with your camera phone. If you've got a shot of one of your yearlings and you think it's outstanding, give it to us and we'll attempt to show some of the best in the next 2 weeks. But that's up to you. If you don't want to be on, don't send it. If you do want to be on, send it to Greg. Everybody's got his number. It's on many social media sites because Greg's very popular. and it's I think
Well, send it to us. The box seat NZ at gmail.com.
Or you can do that. Or you can do that, Greg.
Send it to us.
Yes, you can do that.
Yeah,
and honestly, we'll try and show
we'll
your yearling. But
I know I've got one already, Michael. The half sister will
quick.
always be Mickey out, which makes it a half to a cooter.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
tasty.
and I've seen the photo. It'll be appearing on the show next week, along with some of those Brecken horses. We might just have a sales show next week, Michael, if we get inundated with those photos.
By the way, just talking about Akuta, obviously he was going to go to the Waikato Guineas this week. There were no nominations.
None.
Now, I think Akuta scared them away, and that's okay. But once it was obvious he wasn't going to start, surely people wanted to nominate for a $20,000 race, and there's plenty of 3-year-olds racing at Cambridge. How we didn't get this off the ground, I don't know. I presume it's the Akuta factor, but dear God, it's $20,000. Wouldn't you just... No, I don't know how that worked, but it didn't work.
It didn't work. No, there were no nominations. What is working this week? Wednesday we have the Forbury Park meeting, the Wyndham it is, 8 races there, 12:04. Thursday at Cambridge you've got 10, 5:34, including that Cambridge Classic. Really looking forward to that. Addington have an excellent program highlighted by the Garrard's Horse and Hound Premier Mares. So it's 2 weeks to the Breeders' Stakes, the Group 1. Invercargill Cup Day, they've got a really good program there. 10 races there, they start at 12:20, as do Methven on Sunday, Michael. And we were going to do a decent sort of a preview around Methven with regard to the 3 wise men, they were dubbing it. Be interested in your comments around Ricky May, Tony Hurley and Maurice McKendry. Now it's being postponed because of what's happened with the traffic light system, but the 3 wise men were going to go head to head in 6 races, the only 3 gentlemen who have driven 3,000 winners, of course.
So between them would have had 10,000 New Zealand wins.
Correct.
It'll save for another day. Save for another day. Great concept, good way to honour some legends of the game. We'll go for another day, so there won't be as much travelling backwards and forwards, Greg. As you said, get to the Harness Racing New Zealand website every day heading forward, and hopefully we're going to find out who's allowed to go where and what you have to do to go to those places, Greg, because the website's crucial to providing us with the information for what we all need together, not only to keep safe, but to keep racing, Greg.
Rakiro Racing, they get behind our best bets of the week. They've had a pretty good summer of it too, so well done to them. What about your best bet this week?
It was a tricky week to get hold of. I almost went Muscle Mountain, but the market opened just when I was doing my best bet. He was too short. I like horses coming out of age group races. Mickey Montana is coming out of a good race, obviously, behind True Fantasy and Just Remember Me last time out. She ran 4th in that. She drops back to maiden grade at Cambridge this week. She's a funny little horse, Greg, but she's in the right race and should be winning on Thursday night. Thought Muscle Mountain the same, but $1.55 doesn't give you a lot of spoil.
All right, I've gone with Oneiden Mickey, who was one of our Christmas crackers. More about that in a moment. In the last race, 1 from 1. I reckon it'll be 2 from 2 after Friday night. And Tegan Banner, Jason Broad, suggesting it's the best from the south for their big day at Invercargill Cup Day there on Saturday. Speaking of the Christmas crackers, Michael, I can't emphasise enough how grateful we were to all of the horse people who provided us with horse to follow over the Christmas period. What about the results? I added them up today. 17 winners of 23 races came through. Topping the pops, Craig Thorney with Franco Macho, who's won 3 races. Anna Donnelly came through with Wildcard, which opened up at $10 at its first start. It's won on a couple of occasions. Bollinger, albeit hurt the punters a couple of times, has won on a couple of occasions. And then just a whole heap of winners that paid really good money. Thanks so much to the horse people who provided us with those, including Melanian, who won by the barest of margins on Friday night for Tony Herlihy. So without those people giving us those horses, you at home wouldn't have had so many to back, I suppose, and you wouldn't have backed as many winners possibly.
Well, also the business model for television in this country has changed, so we don't have interviews on track all the time, which is a decision, which is made by other people, and it's tricky. So Harness Racing New Zealand's carrying the can now. They are taking that, and there's previews every day. Every single day. Sunday there's a radio show, SENZ, at 12 o'clock, and Harness Racing New Zealand and people like us will try and update you. But information is crucial, and we're up against the Aussie Gallops, and we're up against domestic galloping, which is covered on the Form show very often, Greg. So it's really crucial we keep getting that information, and we do thank all the people who give it to us, because you may not think it matters, but I know all the galloping people I speak to who say to me, oh, I backed that thing because such and such said you told us to back it. And if we stop doing that, Greg, then we're going to fall off the face of the earth punting-wise. So to everybody out there watching the show who's got horses involved, the bad old days of we're setting this one for a punt and don't tell anybody, well, that's all gone. Trust me, there's fixed odds. If you want to back it, you can still back it. But that information you give to us is crucial to keep us heading forward, because at the moment, we're losing the market share battle, and we're all in that together, Greg, because that battle is very much one that we have to help each other with.
Yep, it certainly is, Michael, and this show, and a big thank you to our sponsors again, because without it, a lot of that information can't get out to the wider community. Michael, that's show number 1 down for 2022. We've got about 14 or 15 to go. Stay safe out there, and a big thank you to you, Michael, for your contribution, and both of us will see you in 7 days' time.
Looking forward to it, Gregory. Interesting times ahead. As I said, stick to the websites. We'll try and keep you updated. Join us also 12 o'clock on Sundays on SENZ, because that's our harness racing of you, and previewing Sunday. Information is king.